The shock came so suddenly, as if Incheon International Airport had turned into the world's main stage. Cameras lined up, flashes struck, and hundreds of voices were muted when Jimin, one of BTS's members long known as Calm, ran through the crowd to tightly hug Jungkook. There was no official announcement, no concert stage, only an airport terminal that suddenly froze, witnessing a moment hard to explain. Questions immediately echoed. What exactly happened behind that hug? Why did Jimin look so emotional that Jungkook could only respond with tears? The moment was not merely an interaction between two groupmates. It turned into a global phenomenon, debated on Twitter, dissected on TikTok, and slowed down frame by frame on YouTube. A faint whisper from Jimin's lips, never truly heard clearly, made millions of people around the world build their own interpretations. Some believed he said, "Don't leave me like that again," while others swore they heard, "I am so afraid of you." There was no certainty, and therein lay the magnet of this event. A mystery born of silence. What made this event even more dramatic was its context. Jungkook had just completed a long overseas schedule, filled with intensive solo promotions that raised concerns about his physical and mental condition. He arrived in a simple appearance, all black clothing, a tired face, slow steps. On the other hand, Jimin appeared with a tense expression, far different from his usually composed and controlled image. When the two figures finally met, it wasn't a smile or formal greeting that appeared, but a sudden hug that shattered the boundary between idol and ordinary human, and the K-pop world, where every gesture is usually tightly controlled by management. Jimin's action was considered an unwritten violation. He didn't just hug Jungkook, he hugged with a force that seemed like desperation, as if there was something deeper than just longing after being apart. That was what then sparked waves of speculation. Did the hug signify a crisis Jungkook was facing? Was Jimin protecting him from something bigger, whether industry pressures, internal conflict, or even unseen threats? Entertainment analysts pointed out that BTS, even while standing at the peak of global fame, never completely escaped pressure. A packed tour schedule, demands of solo promotions, as well as the shadow of mandatory military service had created unavoidable tension. Yet what Jimin displayed at Incheon felt different. It was not a calculated public gesture, but an instinctive reaction seemingly born out of fear of losing. Under the camera lights, the world saw another side of Jimin. Fragile, emotional, and very human, this hug phenomenon then shifted into mass consumption material. Every amateur video was analyzed with scientific precision. Fans did lip reading to guess the whispered words, while online commentators constructed theories ranging from management conflicts to health issues. The harder it was to gain certainty, the stronger the discussions flowed. The mystery became digital commodity. Every upload, every speculation, every discussion brought clicks, views, and engagement. Quickly, a simple hug turned into a never-ending global spectacle. Yet behind the euphoria, there was a side often overlooked: the emotional cost for Jimin and Jungkook themselves. They are humans with private lives, not just public figures ready to be dissected endlessly. When millions of people speculated about a faint whisper, the pressure they bore only grew heavier. Their silence may not be strategy, but a necessity to protect personal boundaries. The reluctance to clarify actually strengthened the event's allure, while reminding us that not everything deserves to be explained to the public. The question is, have we, as spectators, gone too far dragging ourselves into a story that isn't really ours? Very likely. Because, at its core, the moment was a meeting of two individuals who have gone through more than a decade of journey together. They shared the stage, pressure, and struggles. Jungkook's tears and Jimin's hug might be nothing more than a reflection of a bond hard to describe in words. Yet, precisely because the world did not get the answer, the story keeps alive, enlarged, and twisted by collective imagination. Ironically, the uncertainty became the strongest fuel. Mystery always sells better than fact. If the whisper were truly revealed, and turned out to be a simple phrase like, "I missed you," would the world still talk about it? Maybe not. It is precisely the uncertainty that makes this hug linger in public memory, not as an event fully explained, But as an emotional puzzle never resolved, in the end, Jimin's hug to Jungkook at Incheon Airport is a harsh reminder that even global stars are not immune to the most basic human needs: to feel safe, supported, and understood. Whether it was a confession of fear, a plea, or merely an outpouring of longing, the truth remains locked between the two of them. And maybe it really should stay that way. The world may speculate, algorithms may keep twisting, but the true meaning of that hug will only ever belong to Jimin and Jungkook. Meanwhile, for us watching from afar, the event offers a mirror. Are we merely victims of digital sensationalism feeding on curiosity? Or can we learn to hold back, accept uncertainty, and recognize that not everything must be known? That hug, with all its mystery, has transcended mere news. It has become a symbol that behind stage lights and camera flashes, there are humans just as fragile as us, who sometimes only need one hug to survive. The incident at Incheon Airport seemed to never stop echoing. Days passed, yet footage of Jimin's hug to Jungkook kept flooding timelines, crossing platforms, languages, even generations of fans. What at first looked like a brief moment now turned into a collective archive replayed, studied, and discussed endlessly. As if the world agreed there was something bigger hidden behind the embrace. From the perspective of the Korean entertainment industry, such a hug is not common. K-pop grew with a highly controlled image. Smiles, gestures, even interactions among members are often planned to match the narrative the agency desires. But this time, Jimin did something seemingly off-script. He ran, hugged, cried, regardless of cameras, security staff, or the industry's unwritten rules. That was what made the moment feel so raw, nearly impossible to stage. Fans, who had followed BTS's journey since debut, saw it as an honest glimpse of a brotherhood bond built over more than a decade. Jimin, often portrayed as caring, looked so tied to Jungkook. Conversely, Jungkook, usually appearing strong, crumbled in silence, as if Jimin's whisper broke down the last defense he built amid exhausting schedules. In one hug, the world witnessed two sides rarely exposed: the fear of losing and the vulnerability that cannot be hidden. Yet behind the empathy, not a few were skeptical. Some asked, could this be a publicity strategy designed to keep BTS dominating global conversation, especially when military service issues made the group not always active together? Such theories cannot be avoided. The global entertainment industry, especially as big as K-pop, often uses emotional moments to strengthen fan attachment. But could tears and trembling hands be staged so perfectly? Most observers agreed. If this was truly planned, then Jimin and Jungkook's acting surpassed anyone's standard. Interestingly, the longer the speculation grew, the deeper the mystery felt by the public. In online forums, lip-reading analyses were pitted against each other. Some fans were sure Jimin said, "Please don't go again." Others heard, "I'm afraid of losing you." Some even believed the whisper had nothing to do with fear at all, but a personal message too intimate for anyone to guess. The absence of official clarification only made all versions seem valid, and that was what kept fueling the allure. This phenomenon revealed one crucial thing: the enormous emotional influence BTS has over its fans. A single hug could ignite global discussion, penetrate headlines, even spark lengthy analyses usually reserved for political or social issues. In this sense, BTS is not just a music group, but a cultural phenomenon where every gesture carries symbolic meaning. Jimin's hug to Jungkook was not only about two individuals, but about security, solidarity, and emotional connection felt by millions through them. Yet, there is a darker side to the hysteria: the thin line between care and intrusion. In the urge to understand what happened, the public dragged a private moment into endless spectacle. Every lip movement dissected, every teary glance analyzed as if it were evidence of some larger narrative. The question: how far do we have the right to demand an explanation? Does collective curiosity justify relentless digging into the emotional lives of two people who never even offered clarification? On the other side, Jimin and Jungkook remained silent. No posts, no interviews, no clarifications. This silence, strangely, only reinforced the event's aura. Their quiet became a paradoxical confirmation, like saying, "Yes, there is something behind that hug, but it is not for you to know." And precisely for that reason, the public grew more attached, more curious, more unable to detach from the mystery created. The hug has now transcended its status as an airport incident. It became a symbol, a meme, even academic material. Some articles compared it to emotional expressions in other pop cultures. Others interpreted it as representation of a new masculinity, where men can show vulnerability without fear of losing dignity. Meanwhile, fans wrote personal essays on how the hug reminded them of longing, anxiety, or experiences of loss. In other words, its meaning has detached from BTS's context and become public property globally. But is it fair to Jimin and Jungkook? Because, in the end, what we witnessed was only a fragment of seconds from their private lives. Perhaps for them, the hug was merely a spontaneous response, with no intent of becoming the world's spectacle. Yet, because the camera caught it, we felt entitled to interpret it. In this sense, the hug was a naked example of how celebrities' lives are always trapped. Whatever they do can be turned into a narrative far larger than their initial intent. The biggest question still remains: do we truly care about what really happened, or are we just enjoying the sensation of not knowing? Mystery, in many cases, is more captivating than answers. If tomorrow Jimin appeared and said, "I just miss Jungkook, that's all," would the world stop talking? Maybe yes, maybe not. But clearly, the greatest allure of this moment lies in the lack of certainty. And here lies the irony. The hug, which should have been personal, has now become a global mirror. It shows how humans, in the digital era, crave emotional narratives to consume, interpret, and share. At the same time, it reminds us that even the brightest stars are merely humans who can collapse in an instant, need a shoulder to lean on, and are not always ready to provide answers. Maybe, in the end, we don't need to know what Jimin whispered. Maybe what we need to understand is the reality that sometimes one hug is enough to explain everything. That behind camera flashes and global hysteria, there are two humans holding each other up, even if the world is not invited to hear the details. And maybe, precisely for that reason, the moment will continue to live, not as fact, but as a mystery reaffirming the most fragile side of humanity.